Hi, welcome to Philosophy 101, a telecourse on morals and society. This is Program 1, Introduction to Philosophy 101E. So welcome, Philosophy 101E, a cable course on morals and society. I am Chris Ann Moore. I'm an instructor in philosophy at Honolulu Community College. Actually, we're coming to you from the studio at Honolulu Community College with Jamie and with Greg. The first thing we're going to do, since this is Program 1, is go over some of the basic information for the course. Now, this is a tele-web course, so the vast majority of the detailed procedural information you're going to need for this course, you will find on your website. So the very first thing you need to do when you finish watching this show is to go on your website. When you go to this site, you will be asked to log in. You simply log in with your username and password. When you log in with your username and password, you will be taken to the distance education site. There will be a list of distance courses. Go to Philosophy 101E, and that will take you to the home page for this course. Once you're on the home page for this course, you will find the information that you need to be successful in this course. So it's extremely important that you go over it slowly and carefully, but we're just going to go through it rather quickly right now. First thing you'll find out is my information. Again, I'm Chris Ann Moore. My email address is philosophy101@hcc.hawaii.edu. My phone number's there, my office, and of course if you want more information on me, I've put a short biography up on the website as well. Okay, there you'll find your course description. This course is Morals and Society, and what we will be doing in this course is looking at social and individual values, obligations, rights, and responsibilities. And we'll be looking at these in the context of contemporary ethical controversies. We'll be looking at abortion and homosexuality and gay marriage and assisted suicide. We will be looking at these ethical controversies in two ways. In one way, we'll be looking at philosophical theories that have been developed over time, and you will be answering these controversies using those theories. Then, the second part of this course, equally as important, is you will be developing your moral theory, and then you can apply that to these ethical controversies. Okay, that will become clearer as we move along. The next thing you'll see on your syllabus is your student learning outcomes. Student learning outcomes say what you should be able to accomplish by the end of a course or by the end of a program. Each program episode has student learning outcomes, which will tell you what you should know by the end of that section or program. And then the course has student learning outcomes. This is an example of a student learning outcome for this course. By the end of this course, students will be able to demonstrate knowledge of the reasoning used to support philosophical theories, as well as the flaws inherent in each theory. So when you go on your syllabus, you will find a series of student learning outcomes from the course. So you know what we expect the outcomes for you to be at the end of this course. Okay, you will also find details on your course requirements. Just briefly here, let's look at some of those requirements. First of all, televised lectures and films. The vast majority of the content of this course will be communicated to you through 30 episodes on cable TV. So you'll have televised lectures and films. We have 23 lectures and 7 films you will be watching. In each of these lectures, you will see PowerPoint demonstrations, just as the one you're looking at right now. You will be able to download these PowerPoint presentations on your website. That way you don't have to worry about running to take notes while I'm talking. You can go to the website at the end of the program, and there will be the major points made during the episode. You will also find on your website web chapters and study questions. There's no textbook for this course. I have written a chapter for each segment of the course. So you are expected to read those chapters. You should also answer all the study questions at the end of each chapter. Now, you won't be handing that in for a grade, but answering those study questions will ensure your success in this course. All right. Homework assignments. You will, every 2 to 3 episodes, be given a homework assignment in which you will be asked to answer 1 or 2 questions about an ethical controversy, a philosophical theory, your own moral reasoning. This will become clearer as we move through the course. Important information about your homework assignments, however, once again, every 2 to 3 episodes. You're going to answer your homework questions, and then once you participate in answering your homework questions on the discussion board of the website, you will read your fellow students' answers and then participate in a discussion about those answers. Again, there's more information about that on your website. So you will participate in the discussion answering the homework questions. Very important, the due dates for assignments. Your assignments are due 1 week after the first time the episode is aired in which the assignment is given. Again, your assignments are due 1 week after the first airing of the episode for which the assignment is given. This is extremely important. 1 week after the air date of the episode in which the assignment is given. This is extremely important because you'll find that posted on the web. This is extremely important because late assignments will not be accepted in this course. We will be discussing each assignment. If you post your assignments late, you will basically be speaking to an empty room. I will allow you, however, to drop 1 assignment to accommodate for any emergencies that you might have. You will also have an exam in this course. Some information on that exam. It will be a proctored exam, and it will be given at a location near you. What you need to do is check the website for locations, exam dates, and testing times. You will have 1 week to take your exam. Again, all that information is up on the website, so don't get nervous about that now. And then finally, you will also have a final paper. Information on how to write that final paper will be given to you when we're further along in the course. But again, what you need to do is read your syllabus slowly and carefully. We're just going over quickly here. Final point, your grading. You will find detailed outline of my grading in your syllabus, so you can understand how your assignments, your exam, your final paper, and your discussions fit in to the final grade you will be given in this course. It is also extremely important that on your syllabus you will find some very important information about course policies. One of these policies is our policy on courtesy. We will be discussing very sensitive ethical issues. So remember, you are to enter into those discussions with the respect and with the courtesy that you would be expected to behave with in a classroom. Again, please read this section on courtesy in your syllabus. Secondly, extremely important, read the plagiarism policy in your syllabus. You will fail this course if you do not follow the plagiarism policy carefully, so please do read it. Okay, we've gone through our syllabus, just outlined it very briefly. So what you need to do is go on your website after you have watched this program and carefully and slowly read your syllabus so you understand what is expected of you. Now, you're a distance learning student, which is very different from being in the classroom. So what we have done here is produce a short film that will give you some tips on being a successful distance student.
Hi, this is John Blumhardt of the Educational Media Center at Honolulu Community College, and welcome to another telecourse. Oh, excuse me a second, I've got to handle something. Yikes! That's no way to take a telecourse. That's more like it. I'm out of here.
At the very beginning, the thesis of this novel is very powerful. This idea that...
Okay, now that I'm back, I can only do that one time through the magic of television. If you're a telecourse student out there watching this program, you're going to have to do that for yourself. But if you're worried, don't be. It's all about learning, And believe me, there's plenty of help for you to learn better. Telecourses, by their very nature, have certain kinds of characteristics that are conducive to certain kinds of learners, and we'll talk about that for a few minutes. There is a difference between distance learning and classroom learning. So, in order to be a successful student, a distance education student, what are those characteristics that you need to have? First of all, you got to be motivated. Secondly, you need to take personal initiative. That means you've got to be self-directed and you've got to be organized. And you've got to be an effective communicator. Now, what's the difference between a telecourse and a classroom course? Well, for one thing, it's compressed content. In a normal class, you've got about 45 hours of instruction, 15 weeks, 3 hours a week. In a telecourse, that is compressed down to 30 hours. There's more media. We use more media in a telecourse because of its visual. It's combined with usually a website and a textbook. So that creates a lot of material, a lot of high-test content that's in each program and throughout the course. Now, telecourses don't just happen. It's a collaborative effort between a whole bunch of folks. First of all, you've got the instructor. You've got an instructional designer. You've got graphic artists that produce the materials, camera operators, producer directors, webmasters, and television broadcast technicians. One of the things about a telecourse student is that it's about active learning and not passive. You're not going to be able to sit back and just absorb the material. In order to be successful in a telecourse, you must be an active learner. And like I said, it's not about passively sitting back. You're not going to learn the material by using mental telepathy, osmosis, or some kind of a crystal ball. It's about engaging yourself in self-learning. That's what telecourses are about. Now, a word about interaction, like the gears I've got in this picture. Because of its nature, there's no give and take in the classroom. You can't just raise your hand and somehow the instructor on the other end of the TV set's going to be able to see that you're there. And because there's no personal interaction, you're the one that's got to take the initiative if you have a question about the material or about the tests. Because you don't get that immediate feedback, that's one problem. But on the other hand, it's convenient. Taking a telecourse is convenient, but convenience does have its limitations. Now, when we deliver the material, it's called distance delivered. There's some trade-offs. One, you can set your classes around your personal time, but guess what? You have got to be the one to make that schedule. Take your personal time and schedule how you're going to take the course. You don't have to be there for the broadcast itself on the TV or on the channel. As long as you've got a VCR and you can record it and then later on set up the time to review it. Something about in the environment. In your home where you've got your TV set, you're going to have an environment. And just like you saw from our segment in the beginning, in a traditional college classroom, you've got chairs and table and desks and that sort of thing. But because a telecourse is set up the way it is, your home is your classroom. You also need to be specific about start and end times. Telecourses start at a certain time on the channel and they end at a certain time. And unlike a regular classroom course that can, in some cases, run longer or run shorter, a telecourse starts and stops at a predefined time each day. Telecourses are also linear. In the past, that was a problem because you had to be there and record every program, but nowadays, because we make copies of the course available to all the students at libraries and portions of them may be on the website, it allows you the opportunity to jump ahead and look at materials that are going to be coming up, or proceed at your own pace, or watch the materials as they come out on the channel. What do you need to take a telecourse? Well, I would start off with definitely a TV and a VCR, plus some tapes. Record each episode in addition to watching it. And a remote is helpful because if you learn something, then you can use the remote to fast forward the tape until you get to a part where you're a little fuzzy on, and go back and forth until you get the materials nailed down. Find yourself a study area. Set up a quiet study area in your house. This is for viewing and studying the materials for the telecourse. Make sure you've got a book and a syllabus in your study area at the same time. If you don't have it, somehow get hold of it, because you're going to need an internet access and a phone access so that you can contact the instructor by phone or email for assistance or to answer questions. And usually, additional study materials are available on the website. Another thing that you can do is find other people that are taking the course, or if you know somebody in your area that's taking the course, find a study partner that you can hang out with and arrange to create a study group so that you can all be talking about the materials of the course. Biggest thing is time. Telecourses require more time, and it's self-initiated effort. It means they take time, and you've got to create the time for that to happen. And it's not just going to be 30 hours of programming. It'll be studying and preparing for the next course. So it's going to take more time than you think. Now, there's a lot of resources, as I said earlier, that can help you with this. Your instructor, prime resource. Find out their phone number, get their email. Keep in touch with them. Become acquainted with him or her over the phone, email, or, if you need to, contact them in person. Always keep the instructor posted on any changes in your mailing address, phone, or email, so that if they've got any additional notes or changes or updates, they've got some way of contacting you. Okay? Your local UH system campuses, that could be Kapiolani, it could be Kona, it could be Hilo, Kauai. All of the local community college campuses and UH system campuses have materials related to this course available, and you're a college student that's in a system, so use the system. Campus resources include the facilities like the library, administrative assistants, a testing center, a place where you could probably purchase tapes or video CDs. In the library, you'll find things like internet access. If you don't have internet access at home, libraries have internet access. Use that. In some cases, there may even be video on demand. They'll have sets of the course tapes and a VCR you can use if you don't have one at home. They'll have additional resource materials, research materials that you can use to write papers and prepare for quizzes and exams. And they do have a quiet study environment. Now, another important piece for telecourse people is, not only do we have video, but we've also got course websites that we've developed that are companions to the telecourses. On the website, there are a number of things in it. Depends on or varies from instructor to instructor, but you'll have the syllabus and a testing schedule, supplemental materials and reading materials, test questions. It could be a whole host of different kinds of things for you to look at, all designed to help you learn better. So what will you need to succeed? Self-discipline. You've got to have the ability and willingness to work independently. Be a motivated learner. Don't just drift through the class. Get enthusiastic about learning the material. Prioritize. Get things done early. Do the assignments, stay up with the course, and don't let several programs pile up saying, oh, I'll get to that on the weekend. Don't procrastinate. Time management. Use your time effectively, efficiently, and wisely. Structure the course for yourself. Be realistic in setting the time frame for taking and completing the course. Don't think I can handle this in 2 weeks. You might be able to, but typically it'll take you about the same amount of time as a traditional student. Be goal-oriented. Create a schedule that is flexible and allows you to stay on top of the things throughout the course. I know things come up. You know, you've got one of your kids has got a soccer game, or you've got to go somewhere and do something else. But plan a schedule when you're taking this course that will allow you to do things. Set deadlines for you to do your reading and complete your assignments in a reasonable time. And set goals for yourself that will enable you to do well in the class. Take notes. When you are watching the program for the first time, keep your note-taking at a minimum, and then using your remote, go through for a second viewing. Keep a separate set of notes for each unit. Develop a vocabulary list for the important terms, especially the ones that you're not familiar with. Now, assessment is basically a fancy word for testing. We're tested and you're tested because that's how you get your grade. So you can organize your notes in a way that you can study for your exams easier, and arrange a study group if you can to help you study for the exams. Now, we get tested in the way of feedback about the course and how successful we are. On your screen, you'll see a website that you can go through and assess the course. So what's the bottom line? Well, if you're like me, you want to get an A for this class, right? And you know what? You get to start with an A. But in order to keep that A, you've got to be disciplined. And don't procrastinate. Above all, have fun. I hope you found this material informative and helpful. Good luck on your course, and have fun.
Okay, now that should give you some interesting information on how to take a distance course. Now, if you want to access some more resources, you can go to our distance education website, and there you'll find some more information you may need. So definitely check that out. On the course website, you'll also find some further tips that will help you be successful in this course. Available on the course website in the tips section, I've written a short piece on how to write philosophy. Since you will be writing philosophy, read it. You will also find a short section on how to read philosophy. As you read through all of the web chapters, a lot of this information will be new, so check that out. And finally, you will find guidelines for your papers, which will be extremely important. All of those are available on the course website. Also, if you are a student with a disability, please contact Services for Students with Disabilities. We will be able to make some accommodations to help you be successful in this course. So they're wonderful there. Please give them a call. All right, now we are ready to start with our first lecture. And our first lecture is, what is philosophy? Now, you've probably never taken philosophy before. That will be true for the vast majority of you. And if you think about it, that's unusual. As you come into college, you will be taking brand new courses, but they're the types of courses you've been taking before. Chances are that you've taken history, you've taken math, you've taken literature, you've taken poetry, but you've never taken philosophy. This is not unusual. Philosophy is a college-level course for many reasons, which I think you'll find out. A large part of that is because it is what philosophy is and where it fits into your education. Now, education has two very important intertwined but different goals. One of the goals of education, which is extremely important, is the development of knowledge and skills in order to develop vocation, in order to be able to do something in which you can make money and enjoy, so that you can be self-sufficient, so that you can have self-fulfillment, so that you can contribute to your family, your community, your society, and your world. Philosophy is not as much about vocation as it is about the other aspect of education. Philosophy is about personal transformation. Now, it is understood that personal transformation will improve every aspect of your life, including vocation. But although most businesses truly value the skills that philosophy requires, and actually specifically ask for the ethical knowledge that you will be learning in this course, philosophy is less about what you do than it's about who you are. Philosophy is direct engagement in that personal transformation, which is such an important part of education. So how can we understand that? Well, have any of you seen the movie White Men Can't Jump? There's a scene in this movie where one player says to another, "You can listen to Jimi Hendrix, but you can't hear Jimi Hendrix." It's an interesting idea, this idea of the difference between listening and actually hearing, because that requires a transformation. Just the same, there's a difference between looking and actually seeing. There's a difference between knowing and actually understanding. That is the leap that is required of you when you are asked to transform, to expand, to be more conscious of your consciousness, and to participate more directly in the formation of that consciousness. And that is what philosophy is about. Okay, that may seem really confusing. So let's just break it down. What is philosophy? Well, if you translate philosophy directly from the Greek, you will find that it means love of wisdom. Philosophy is love of wisdom. In Greek, philo means love. And Sophia is the goddess of wisdom. So philo, Sophia, is love of wisdom. Of course, this leaves us the question, okay, what is wisdom? Well, there are many definitions of wisdom. As a matter of fact, you will find there are many definitions of many things in philosophy, and few philosophers agree with one another, or often they disagree with one another, let's say that. But most would agree that philosophy is a kind of knowledge. But it is not knowledge as knowledge how to fix your car, or knowledge how to cook, or knowledge of a specific field. Wisdom is actually knowledge of how to live. And of course, it isn't the knowledge of how to live just any old life. Wisdom, of course, is the knowledge of how to live the best possible life. And that is the definition we will be using in this course. That wisdom is the knowledge of how to live the best possible life. But of course, wisdom has to be something more than knowledge. Just as you may have knowledge about yoga from reading a book on yoga, you can't be said to have any wisdom of yoga unless you actually get out on the floor and you do some stretches. Well, the same thing can be said of wisdom. It's not enough to have knowledge of how to live the best of all possible lives. You have to be able to live it to be truly considered wise. So, knowledge of how to live the best of all possible lives and the ability to live it. But of course, just as getting down on the floor every once in a while and doing yoga won't give you knowledge of yoga, give you wisdom of yoga. And even if you do yoga every 2 or 3 months, you will have no wisdom of yoga. You attain the wisdom of doing yoga by doing it day after day after day consistently. And the same thing can be said of wisdom. You need to do it consistently in order to be considered wise. So, what is wisdom? Wisdom is the knowledge of how to live the best of all possible lives and living it consistently. And that is the definition we'll be using in this course. So, from this definition, it should be obvious that we're all philosophers. We're all seekers of wisdom because we all want to live the best of all possible lives. And we want to live it consistently. Oh, sure, I know that there are days when it seems just fine to be mediocre. Days when actually mediocre seems a step up. There are times when we are so crushed by circumstances, that we are so disappointed and distracted that we just want to make it through the day. But when you're not in those times, if you examine yourself, you do want to live the best of all possible lives because you want to be happy. Nobody got up this morning and said, yes, I want to be mediocre. Or, you know what, I'm going for rotten today. Nobody jumped out of bed and said, oh, you know, I want a dull life. You didn't and I didn't. If we're not in one of those times when we're just trying to make it through, we want to have the best. And I know that's true of you because you would not be going to college. You would not be taking college philosophy if there was not something within you that was striving to have the best of all possible lives. And you have to be willing to do the work in order to achieve that. And showing up here is part of that. All right, well now if we see that philosophy is love of wisdom and wisdom is knowledge of how to live the best of all possible lives, and being able to live it consistently, it should be pretty obvious to you that that leads to a whole bunch of questions. How do I live the best of all possible lives? Think of some of the questions that that brings up for you. Here are some of the ones I've heard in the past. Does my life have meaning and purpose? Does a divine being exist? Why is there so much cruelty and suffering? What is happiness? What is love? Is there a way that I ought to behave? Again, what is right? What is wrong? How do I know? What should I do? These are just some of the questions that come cascading down at us when we set out on that journey to live the best of all possible lives. As a matter of fact, I am sure that you have asked yourself some of these questions at some time or another. Sure, we go through periods of life when we're just living, when we're not confronted with the big questions, but then something comes up, an obstacle comes up, and it is through those dark nights and painful passages that we go through when we're hit by those obstacles, that we begin to ask, why? What am I doing here? And how can I live? What should I do? And how do I know what I should do? Now let me ask you something. What would you do? Would you want someone to give you all the answers to those questions? Let's do an exercise. I'm going to give you the choice between going through one of two doors. You can only choose one door, and when you go through, you can't come back. Tell me, which door are you going to choose? Door number one. You enter a world where you are given all the answers. In this world, there will be peace and ease because everyone has all the answers. Or you can go through door number two. Now, in door number two, you have to strive and struggle for your own answers. So yes, there's striving and struggling, and there's pain and failure and confusion. But there's also success and accomplishment. Which door would you go through? Would you go through door number one to the world of peace and ease, where you're given the answers? Or door number two, the world of striving and struggling, where you have to figure out your own answers? Well, if we were in class, I would ask every one of you to give me that answer. But since we're not, I will give you the answers that I have heard from hundreds and hundreds of students. Over all the time that I've been teaching this course, 90 to 98% of my students go through door number two every single time. My students go through the door where they have to strive and struggle for their own answers. I will give you some of the answers my students have given me in the past. Now, every once in a while, there's a student or two who goes through door number one. Why? Because it's easy. And because sometimes you're just at one of those times in your life where you're longing for peace. But also, a lot of students say about door number one, it sounds boring, and there are no challenges. So that makes door number one unattractive to most students. On the other hand, door number two, when you strive and struggle for your own answers, students say things like, it's challenging. You get to develop your own individuality. Since nobody's giving you the answers, you get to think of your own answers. In door number two, you get to get real understanding. You see, when you strive and struggle for it, and you come up with it on your own, you value it, and you understand it deeply inside yourself. Because you've worked for it, because you fought for it, because you felt pain for it, you understand it deep inside yourself. And of course, for door number two, there's free will. In door number 1, you can't decide what you want to believe. You're told what's true. In door number 2, for all the pain and confusion, you get to choose. If you're given answers, there's no free will. Think about this. If you know absolutely certainly that God exists, you have no choice not to believe. On the other hand, if you know absolutely certainly that God does not exist, you have no choice to believe. So as long as there is an indefiniteness to the answer, faith and free will remain. Once you're given all the answers, there is no free will, and there's no possibility of faith in this area. So, this exercise demonstrates a mind-blowing philosophical insight. And that insight is that, given the opportunity to experience a world of peace and ease, given the opportunity to be handed all the questions, all the answers, to our most confusing and desperate questions, we wouldn't take it. We wouldn't take it if the cost of those answers was that they were somebody else's answers. That we would actually choose this world of pain and failure and striving and struggling that we complain about all the time. That's amazing if you think about it. It's transformative every year when I do it, as students realize that this world that is so painful and so confusing is the world that we would choose, because we want the striving and we want the struggle and we want the individuality and we want the challenge and we want the chance for success. We want the chance for achievement. And that's an amazing thing. Because as you might have already realized, the world behind door number 2 is the world that we live in. This is our world, where you do have to strive and struggle for your answers, because there are no definitive answers to philosophical questions. And that's an important point. There are no definitive answers to philosophical questions. No answers that can undoubtedly be proven true. In other words, that over all the time that philosophy has been going on, all the brilliant minds and all the questions that have been asked and all the striving and struggling that has been done, although some brilliant answers have been come up with, none of them are perfect. None of them can be proven to be true without a doubt. This is stunning in a way, if you really think about it. That we don't know the answers to the most important questions of human life. Think how odd that is. You go to the store and you buy something as mundane and mediocre as a lawnmower, and you get a manual this thick. However, as babies, we come naked and howling into the world. No instructions. Not even a clue. It can be terrifying and confusing to realize that. But this exercise should have showed you it's also fantastic. Because what does that allow? It allows you to strive and struggle for your own answer. It allows for you to discover your answers for yourself. Because, you see, philosophy really is, where is philosophy? Philosophy exists in that psychic space where the unavoidable question and the unanswered question are one and the same. You see, you cannot not ask philosophical questions. You cannot wonder, what am I doing here? Why does it hurt so bad? You cannot not ask, what should I do with my life? Who should I be? Or should I marry this person? And yet, all those questions, you cannot be given an answer. And that's hard. But it's wonderful. Because that means you get to figure out your answers. Is it easy? No. Is it challenging? Is it exciting? Yes. You see, philosophy is engagement in that dance of life, because that dance of life is conscious, creative confrontation with the mystery of life. And that is what philosophy is about, is taking the unanswered question and the unavoidable question, facing the mystery of life, and participating in that dance, participating in it consciously, participating in it creatively. Confront the mystery of life and strive and struggle for your answers. And that's exciting. And that's what we're going to be doing in this course. We're going to be involved in striving and struggling for our own answers. But one of the things we have to realize is although there are no definitive answers to the great philosophical questions, it is very important to note some answers are better than others. Some answers are just plain wrong. Wrong answers. They obviously do not lead to the best of all possible lives, so we can get rid of those right away. Philosophy, of course, philosophy seeks the best possible answers. And so that's what we're going to be doing in this course. We're going to be participating in conscious, creative confrontation with the mystery of life, asking questions, and finding the best possible answers to those questions. And in our next two episodes, we'll talk about how to do that. But in this course, we will not be looking at all of the great philosophical questions. That would be impossible. We're going to ask only one small part of all those questions that can be asked by philosophy. But the part that we'll be looking at is essential because it goes to the very core of what it is to be human. We're going to be looking at the entire field called morality. What is morality? Morality asks nothing more and nothing less than questions about how we ought to lead our lives. Morality deals with correct behavior towards oneself and other beings. So we will be asking moral questions and confronting moral dilemmas. And in asking moral questions, we will try to discover what our morality is. For example, simply, you're walking down the street. You see a wallet. You pick it up. Open it up. Oh, $100. Oh, a driver's license. So not only do you have $100, but you know who it belongs to, and you know where to return it to. What do? Do you return the wallet and the money? Do you return the wallet but keep the money? Do you keep both? Do you perhaps leave them sitting there on the floor? What would you do? The answer to this question is your moral answer, your morality. Well, now, once you decided what you would do, let me ask you this. Why? If you return the wallet, why would you return the wallet? If you kept the wallet and the money, why? When I ask you why, I'm asking what are your reasons for making the decision that you made? What is your reason for deciding you should keep the money in the wallet? Or what is your reason for deciding you should return the money in the wallet? See, it might be easier to say, oh, I will return the money in the wallet, but harder to say why. Now, the answer to this why is your ethics. Ethics is the reasoning used to determine and defend answers to moral questions and dilemmas. So that is what we will be looking at here. We will be looking at moral dilemmas and ethical controversies, and we will be asking you to decide what's moral, what's immoral, what choice would you make. But beyond that, you will be asked to know what is your reasoning for the choice you made. What is the reasoning behind the decision you made? We will be examining morality and ethics. Now, these are extremely important areas. We are confronted with moral dilemmas and ethical questions every single day, and our answers to them speak to the very essence of who we are. How you answer moral questions determines your character. In fact, how you answer moral questions determines your world. Not only does it determine your world, how you answer moral questions determines my world. Why is that so? I bet you don't want to pay $1,000 for car repairs your car doesn't need. I bet that you don't want to buy a house that has been cheaply and shoddily constructed for maximum profit. I bet that you do not want your air and water polluted, your retirement fund looted. You don't want to live in a world where people are making those decisions, and neither do I. And yet each of those decisions is a moral decision. And the world in which those things can happen exists because of the answers people have given to moral questions. Not only in areas like air and water and health funds and car repairs and the construction of your house do ethics and morality apply, but think of it, who is going to decide in this city, in this state, whether gay people are allowed to be married or not? You are. Who is going to decide whether women retain the right to an abortion? You are. Who is going to decide whether assisted suicide is made legal or not? You are. You are by your beliefs, you are by your actions, and you are, yes, by your vote. And even if you don't vote, that in itself is an action. So since your morality creates your character and your world, and all of our worlds, it is of the utmost importance that you make moral decisions consciously, and that you seek to make the best of all possible decisions. You need to strive and struggle for those answers, because it's only through striving and struggling for those answers that you can come up with the best of all possible answers. And only by coming up with the best of all possible answers do you have a chance to live the best of all possible lives. And the best of all possible lives is, of course, a happy life. Now, it may seem to some that since we're looking for the best of all possible answers in order to live the best of all possible lives, that I am saying that morality is really about selfishness. Now, there are people who have said this in the past. They have said that actually no human being is capable of doing anything that is not selfish. And whatever moral decision that you make, eventually it can be considered a selfish decision. Let's think about this. Let's look at this argument. People who believe this would say that if you're walking down the beach and you see someone drowning, and you jump in and risk your life to save that person who's drowning, you've actually made a selfish decision. How can that be? Well, they would say, you only jumped in because you see yourself as a hero. Or you only jumped in because you would feel too guilty if you didn't jump in. Or you jumped in because you want to get to heaven. Now, any of those could be true. Now, these people would say, therefore, you may have risked your life to save someone, but in fact, it was a selfish act. The people who would say that are confused. And I don't want you to fall into that confusion. One of the really important things we'll find out in philosophy is that in order to be able to conduct philosophy properly, you have to have correct definitions. The people who are making this argument do not understand the difference between self-interest and selfishness. Self-interest. Let's look at the definition of self-interest. Because self-interest is not necessarily selfishness. They are two very different things. What is self-interest? Self-interest is concerned with one's own advantage. Self-interest is saying, I do want to live the best of all possible lives. I do want to have a happy life. And in the decisions I make, I want to make the best possible decisions for my own sake. But this is not necessarily selfishness. Selfishness is something quite different. Let's look at the definition of selfishness. Selfishness, to be selfish, is to be concerned exclusively or excessively with oneself, without regard for others. This is a very important difference, without regard for others. Because actually, self-interest can involve regard for others, and selfishness never does. In fact, those who believe in enlightened self-interest would not disregard others. Selfishness disregards others. Enlightened self-interest is concern for others, and realizing that concern for others is to one's own advantage. Let's make this clearer by looking back at this example. You're walking down the beach, you see someone drowning. You dive in and you risk your life to save them. Is it possible that that action is in your self-interest? Yes, it is possible that that action is in your self-interest. But it is not a selfish action. Actually, your action is in regard for others, regardless of the fact that it is also in regard for yourself. Selfishness, on the other hand, would be quite different. Selfishness would be walking down the beach, seeing that somebody's drowning, and thinking, I wonder if they left a wallet on the beach. That is selfishness. Because you're concerned about your own advantage, but you're completely disregarding whoever's drowning in order to find their wallet. See the difference? In this course, I will stand by a suggestion that morality is in your self-interest. And so will most of the philosophers that we study. That knowing your ethics is in your self-interest because it is essential to the pursuit of happiness. It is essential to the gaining of wisdom. It is essential to living the best of all possible lives. And that is what philosophers seek. However, that is not selfishness. And I think that we'll find in the course of this semester that, in fact, selfishness is not in one's own self-interest. Of course, that will be up to you to decide as you strive and struggle for your own answers. Okay, we're coming to the end of Lecture 1. Now we're going to look at some of the student learning outcomes for this section. Student learning objectives for this section of the course. You should be able to define philosophy, wisdom, morality, and ethics. You should be able to explain that there are no definitive answers to philosophical questions, why this may be a really good thing. You should also be able to explain that some answers are better than others, that philosophy seeks the best possible answers, why morality and ethics are important. Finally, you should be able to explain the difference between self-interest and selfishness. Okay, now go to your website. Read your syllabus carefully so that you know the course procedures, and then read Why Study Philosophy. That will go over the information in this lecture. At the end of the chapter, Why Study Philosophy, there will be study questions. Answer each and every one of those study questions to prepare you to move on in the course. Welcome to Philosophy 101E, Morals in Society. I am Chris Ann Moore, and we'll see you next time for Program 2, Inadequate Answers. In the next program, we'll start looking at how do we find the best possible answers. And before we can find the best possible answers, we need to look at those answers that are inadequate. And you might be surprised at what some of those are. Look forward to seeing you next time.